There's a hand upon my shoulder, there are voices in my ear. While I grow older, ever older, they still echo down the years. There's a hand upon my shoulder, there are voices in my ear. Although the trail grows colder, colder, I still hear them drawing near. There's a hand upon my shoulder, there are voices in my ear. Still the embers smoulder, smoulder, all the fires that once burned fierce. It may probably not surprise you that I actually have little control over the poetry that I write. When I say that, I don't mean the detail. Of course, when I'm scanning out the verses, I control the rhyme and the rhythm. But the ideas, the thoughts, the images, they just come or don't come, as the case may be. And they don't come in any particular order. They don't come for any particular reason that I know of. Could be shopping, could be walking down by the river, could be washing up, just gazing out the window. They just come or they don't. And maybe you find it's the same when you're writing poetry. And after a few years of this sort of random lucky dip poetry writing, I thought, well, what are we going to do with all these poems that are going to fester on the computer, or we could try and persuade Jan and Donal to publish them. But I don't know about you, but I don't really go for sort of a lucky dip structure. I wanted a theme. So it took me some while to think about that, about what's the theme or framework can I use to hang these poems together. And after a lot of, well, I tell you, the first one I tried, Jan and Donal didn't like it. We had a sunny afternoon cup of tea, and they said in a very nice way, "It's not working, Jeremy." So, so I went home and thought again, and thank you for that, because I think the final result is much the better for that. So in the end, I came back with a second theme, which is this one, Wise as Water, and I'll tell you more about that after you've heard the poem. Wise as water. Toiling heavy up the hill, I struggle for breath. Each sharp boulder, each loose stone contrives somehow to trip and test me. Each shard of gorse to snag and spike. The land seems set against me. Still I journey on. My breath comes harder now, rasping in my throat. I lose the path, but stumble forwards, and gasping as the sky opens wide before me, the slope eases, and I reach the top, and there, right there upon the wind-blown grass, I drop, my chest heaving, wild heart beating, and in that moment I turn back, drink in the view. Some way distant across the lowlands, the river's shining. A silver snake through woods and fields is winding in silent grandeur, the waters sliding on relentlessly, smoothly without effort, frictionless in its majesty. Would that I were wise as water, gliding soft as rivers go, lazy through the troubled landscape, loose and lax as ribbons blow. Would that I were wise as water, would I could travel easily along the path of least resistance, ever homewards to the sea. Would that I were wise as water, would that I were sage as stone, would that I were deep as forests, more than foolish flesh and bone. Thank you. So that was the poem that I chose as a framework for this book. And basically, the first section, going up the hill, I've linked to childhood and my early years. Not that my childhood was all hard and all a struggle, but certainly elements of it were, and it's certainly, looking back on it, I feel That's where most of my life's energy went into the early years. And then the second part of the book, the reflective part, standing on the top of the hill looking back, is the last section of the book. And the bridge in the middle, which is the second section, is of course my mother, who bridges right across all parts of my life. So that was the structure, and guess what? They liked it. In fact, I came in the front door, didn't I, Donald? And he said, "You've got nothing to talk about, Jeremy. It's all fine. Have a cup of tea. Let's have a chat." And I think that's what happened, actually. So walking has been a big part of my life, whether up hills or down hills. But I have always walked in the West Country, in the hills. And I walk around Surrey, and I walk along this towpath on the River Wey when I get a chance as well. And walking, I think, is one of life's great, simple pleasures. The second poem is called When We Went Out Walking. It was when we went out walking, you told me, all the troubles of your heart, as if the simple act of moving broke the seal on you apart, and all the things that were bottled up within you, but festered in the dark, came bubbling out like poison, purged from you at last. And I swear I saw you lifted, saw your spirits rise, saw the light in you return once more, and the shining of your eyes. Strange how the simple act of walking should release you from the dark, somehow magically unlocking the padlock on your heart. And all the troubles that weighed on you rose up like birds and flew away as we walked on together in the brightness of the day. It was when we went out walking you told me all the troubles of your heart, as if the simple act of moving broke the seal on you apart. Thank you. Memory is a very powerful thing, and when you lose people, sometimes the memories are so strong that it's as if they're still with you. And it's like that, and has been like that, with my mother. As I said, I wrote the middle section of this book. Are a few poems particularly about her. So this poem is called Cooking, and sometimes the memories can be so strong it's almost like you're with a ghost, I think. Cooking. Cooking is love, she said, leaning lightly against the fridge. You see that now, she laughed, and smiling in that way she did, as I looked up to find her lighting up the kitchen. I can tell. She took me by surprise. I was peeling, chopping carrots for the pan, and had not expected her, off guard and turning courgettes, peppers in my hands under the tap. She knew me well. It's taken me a while, I said, all the days since you've been gone. But you're right. I think I do. I see it now. Now I cook for them, wife, daughter, son. The meals roll out, day in, day out, as you know well. I stirred the pan, added herbs, savouring the richness of the years. When I glanced up, she disappeared. Somewhere distant, a dinner bell, and in the air, like summer meadows, the flowered sweetness of her smell. I think mums who have boys only, as children, have a particular time of it, really. And it was like that in our family. I'm one of two brothers. So to be a woman surrounded by three men all the time, I think must have been quite hard. So, you know, as a child you never see that at the time, but I see it, of course, looking back. So this is called Mending. for my mother again. You were always mending, torn sleeves, ripped jeans, grazed knees and elbows, patching us up after the playground fight, the reckless fall off the bike. Then the soft kiss, the gentle ruffling of the hair, and off we'd go again, good as new. You were always mending, sewing the family back together with careful, neat stitches, with calm, kind words, making us whole, repairing tears and rifts, drawing us close again with your steely needle and persistent, determined thread. You were always mending, healing arguments. After the explosion of temper, the awkward silence at the dinner table, yielding eventually to the simple medicine of your small talk. Hard, frozen faces melting slowly in your warmth. Then someone would crack us open with a joke, and we'd cry with laughter. So there are a few more poems dedicated to my mother in the book, and as I say, she's a very powerful memory that lives with me. The other strong influence in my life has always been the natural world. Right from a child, wandering around the moors in Dartmoor, on the Mendip Hills. Those were the days when you could still, as a kid, be let loose. You could be, some holidays, the front door would open and you'd be gone. And you wouldn't come back until you got hungry. So I've always felt that strong link with the natural world. And I don't know if you've ever felt it, that the exhilaration of being out in wild weather or in a storm is just fantastic. You could be standing on the top of a cliff and the sea could be raging in, could be a thunderstorm coming in, the wind be howling at you, and it's just fantastic. So here's a poem about that elemental connection. Sea in the trees. The wind is up and here she is. The sea is in the trees again, seething, roaring loud, the breakers riding free again, tossing through the boughs. The thick of night, and here I lie, drifting in my bed again. Outside the trees blow wild, the sea runs through my head again. Possessed as Neptune's leaf child, I'm trembling in rip currents, streaming in the storm, yelling to the heavens, yes, yes, this is why I'm born. Thank you. Do I have time for one more, or shall I stop? Okay. One more. Okay. So, I owe a lot of thanks in my life, and perhaps one of the biggest thanks I owed are to some fantastic teachers who I was lucky enough to come across when I was younger. And this is about one of those fantastic teachers. Ignition. Over time, over the long passing, some things stay with you. Some things go deep. Some things you don't forget. Like the teacher who said to me, "You know you're good at this." Oh yes, I remember her kind eyes, the warmth of her smile, her gentle, understated ways. How could I forget that validation? You can really do this. Oh, precious spark of kindling that fueled a lifelong blaze. She lit a fire that burns in me, the beacon of my days. We were talking about, I was talking about memories and how strong they can be in the first half. And I like the way that history often can walk with us in the present day. And I was also talking about walking, and sometimes I don't know if when you're walking, you get the same impression that if you walk an old path, you can lose sense of time and place, and you can feel some perhaps connection with the past that you can find out there in the fields and the woods and the hills that escapes the present day. So this poem is about that. It's called The Land Remembers. Once imprinted, once laid down, how hard it is to erase a path. Once stamped upon the earth, how deep, how durable that first impression. It seems the land remembers as the world turns on, long after feet and hooves and wheels have gone. Take to the air any time in an English summer as birds do. Look down. The fields awash with ranks of wheat or blazing oilseed rape. Disclose old secrets, share their memories. The land remembers, so it seems. Dark creases, cleft shadow lines run clear through the swaying crop. Markers of another time, another dream. Go into the English hills in winter on a wild moonlit night when silver clouds run like rags across the wind-scratched sky. Ignore the biting cold. Wait by the stile in the old stone wall. Hold still. Stay silent until you hear the tramp, the rhythmic beat and grumbling curses of Roman legionaries along some fosse way or Watling Street. See there, a line of marching figures, shivering, turning shoulders to the bitter wind and thinking of home. A warm Italian hillside, the balmy Mediterranean lapping at their sore and aching feet. Thank you. I don't know about you, but I also love the seasons, and of course about being in this country where we do at this latitude, we get this rich mix of the full 4 seasons. And this is about the season that's just gone, the late autumn running into early winter of November and December. And in my back garden, we have 2 large old oak trees. And although everything stops growing, of course, in the garden in the winter, my job just turns to chasing leaves around the garden from these great trees. So this is a poem about that time called The Slackening. In the garden, the autumn leaves are piled up in the corner again, in the lee of the house, where the wolf wind slackens. It cannot touch them now, although around the margins it prowls, it lingers, fumbling wayward strays with dangerous, ever restless fingers. Herding like sheep, the leaves crouch in, closing ranks and gathering. The flock denies the hungry wind. Indoors, I'm holed up in my room again, in the womb of the house, where it's still, where it's calm, and time and worries slacken. They cannot touch me now. And safe within this precious nook, I huddle down, reading, my errant thoughts gathered in, rounded up by shepherd voices in my book. Turning now back to my early days, this next poem is about the first job, the first time you might move and go out and take up that first job. For me, although this poem isn't literally from experience, I had this kind of experience. It's called Iron Filings. It's always been true. Cities draw the young like magnets pulling iron filings. And so I filed in. I got a job and rented a small place. 4 bleak walls of silent isolation. Blankness enveloped me like a fog. Give up, go home, I never would. Too stubborn, too scared, too proud. But never was I so alone as when standing in a crowd. Later on, thank you. Later on in life, you can get quite easily wrapped up in work and paying the bills. And if you're not careful, you can lose sight of everything else in that great chase. And here's a poem about that.
Linda's noticing.
Thinking outside the box. After you've saved up, bought a box to live in, found a job, a mortgage, worked hard, long years to pay off the debt, it may be hard to escape. Your best years may be gone. You may have forgotten who you were, lost all that early promise of great things ahead, of a life of your choosing, to be lived in glorious blazing colour, not black and white. The habit of containment, of conformity, can be hard to break. Imprisoned, you may be carrying the keys of your cell in your own pocket, unaware or unable to grasp your freedom. When you step into that box, you may want to leave a window open. Then at least you can still hear bird song, and somewhere faintly in the distance, the wind and the booming of the sea. One last one, Jan?
Yes, please.
Okay. As a child, I really liked art and I really liked drawing and painting, and my father was good at it and he taught me quite a lot of technique. I had to drop it later on in school, but I really loved it in the early years. And I used to go out sketching in the outdoors, and over time it came to me that actually life drawing, and by that I mean whether you're drawing nature or people or the real world rather than abstract, is really about the study of light. Light reflected off all manner of surfaces, whether they be buildings, whether they be fields, whether they be people. It's all reflected light, and whether you can capture that with your paint, pencil, however you're drawing or painting. This is called the kiss. Have you noticed how the kiss of sunlight gives things form, fills them out, gives body to dimension, and texture to blank surface, rough or worn? And edges, margins, sharp or torn, are crisply redefined, resolved, so taking on clear line. Have you noticed how the kiss of sunlight magically transforms? Stand on the hill in the greyness before dawn. Then watch, look out across the landscape. Have you noticed how in the kiss of sunlight everything's reborn? Thank you very much. I love these kind of events where it's live, where you hear the spoken word. They're just brilliant. So much of our intake is, can I call it artificial these days? But this is the real thing. Yeah. So this poem is for everybody, all of you who came tonight. Thank you very much for doing so. I really appreciate it. This is called Some People. Some people seem more alive than others. I look for them like sisters, brothers along the way. Why this should be, I cannot say. What is this? Some connection, some mutual spark, that we all dancers in the dark might illuminate each other briefly, for a moment, all sisters, brothers. Some people seem more alive than others. Some people shine in vivid colours, although sometimes they must be discovered beneath the outer grey. I look for them along the way, so we may laugh and celebrate each day the life force that we share and say, we live. We live, hooray!
Hooray!